big round of applause. Welcome. I will sit there. So that is my chair. Everything is up to you. So what do you think about the result? Yes, limited. Surprising, well, as expected, or what do you say?
I'm a bit surprised about the 11. There is not permitted to use AI.
Yeah.
I still think that's a lot, even though it's like 10%-ish. But the big chunk in the middle, I think that's fairly expected. I don't think even in media, Microsoft or Meta is fully implementing AI. So kudos to the 6 people that think, okay, we are done with that AI. But the 11 is a bit scary.
Yeah. Any other comments? But you agree with Rasmus? So
I think I agree with that. I'm from Meta. I think I also agree that it's not like we are using it from early morning to late night. Also, of course, we have it in our tools, but there's more to do there also. So I guess we'll get back to that.
Definitely. And welcome. I'm really looking forward to a good discussion around AI in general. And we've tried to shape the discussion into different themes around AI to understand, where are we going. You spoke about AI. You've been speaking about AI all the time, Rasmus. You spoke about it last year. How fast everything is going, and the development that we need to get on the train and all that. So that's of course something that we had a lot of feedback around, and also is part of the discussion in general.
Was he right?
Yeah, but that's the question to you guys, right?
Yes.
But I think one of the questions and the theme to kick off this discussion is AI today, is it hype or is it real impact, right? Because we hear a lot about it, but do we see any impact, to be totally honest? So the first question for discussion is the Gen AI truly transforming industries and creating the business value that you also spoke about, Rasmus? I remember that, business value, right? Or are we still stuck in the hype and, the whole idea about what is AI and what is it going to do? Will you kick off, Rasmus? Because
I can kick it off. And you didn't listen last time I was here. I
Probably
tried
not.
to tell you that this is not a hype curve, but an exponential curve. Yes, there's a lot of hype under there's OpenAI, there's Agent, there's a lot of different hype curves that form the normal Gartner hype curve. But if you put them in series of each other, and then you have the AI exponential curve. So it's coming to be more and more and faster and faster and faster and faster and more and more hypes. So that speed of innovation is still underneath there. I think, Martin, your boss said it the best. Yeah, we are probably spending a few billions too much on GPUs, but it gives us a ticket to play in the most important technology for the next 10, 15, 25 years. So that investment is important for Meta to actually be part of this. So you need to do same message as last year. It's not a hype, it's a train, it's more like a rocket and you need to jump on it. Kudos to Mark for that quote. I really like that. To actually invest in this is super, super important. And there's a lot of way to get started with Copilot and all these kind of things. But look at what makes your company important. What is the only thing you can do? Instead of only having HR chatbots and IT chatbots, what is it your company is doing? What is the most unique thing about your company and how can that be affected by AI?
So when Rasmus talks, I tend to just listen because he's usually right. I would on this one, I would say yes, there has been a hype cycle, no doubt about it. The technology, or at least the perception of what the technology do, was way ahead of what it actually could do, and also where the sort of businesses were in terms of creating the return on investment. I think that is changing and has changed. I think the business model and the technology has caught up to the hype. I think, by the way, it's not only been hyped, the risks have also been over-exaggerated. If you go back two and a half years ago, there was one camp saying that AI would solve everything, from climate change to world hunger. Another camp saying we'll all be dead in 2 years.
We heard the podcast around that, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We'll all be dead in 2 years. Here we are 2 years later, and neither of those two extremes has happened. So I think we are actually now in a much better place than we were, both in terms of where the hype is, but also where I think some of the early, very understandable, but some of the early concerns were around the technology.
Yeah, I can continue from here. I'm from CD Solutions, so we are IT consultant, IT consultancy, and I've been with the company for 7 years. 5 years ago, we start first time getting close into look of the topic of AI. At the time, AI is an umbrella term, we all know. And at the time, we were most looking into a trustworthiness of AI. And at that time, AI is about machine learning. And then 2 years ago, flip the card coming to the large language model. I think last year I probably have done more than 100 client meetings, discuss about potential usage of AI, where Sealy could help them to make this happen, bring the actual business impact to their business value chain. And the trends we have observed is at the beginning of the year, a lot of people or key leaders were asking for, okay, can you train us? How do I use this large language model into my own day-to-day works? And then gradually it's coming to, okay, now I understand on some level, how can you make sure my team or this part of the organization can utilize large language model into improved productions? For example, AI-powered software development was mentioned a lot. And now we're seeing also the shift into understanding beyond just optimizing the internal workflow, what could be more than just large language model this year is also about AI agent. What kind of agentic applications that we can use utilizing the rich data the company gathered in past 10 years. So definitely there is a hype in terms of actual practical use cases that can bring, but there's also solid promising and improvements in the understanding for business, what kind of AI transformation, what kind of impact AI bring to them.
Well, I can from Meta side, we can definitely, recognize a lot of that. I think, Meta, we've always been using AI, of course, for many years on the old school AI, for basic things, like not just basic things, but like cleaning up the platform, pretty important things. Cleaning up the platform for bad content, searching for content. So the content moderation, the cleaning up process is heavily dominated by AI systems that it makes us more efficient in that area. We're using it to serve content to people. We're using it to serve ads, of course, all these things. But then over the last few years here, where we went into the Gen AI, it's right what Rasmus says. We're taking a bet on that in the sense that we're spending a tremendous amount of money on investing in it, and it is, and maybe we are overspending, but we don't dare not to. I think we want to be a leader in this field, so we go all in, and now we're using the tools also internally and actually in our own sort of marketing ads business. We're using it to optimize there so that advertisers is easier to use our platforms. So it's much easier to use them. They don't have to. It's a long one. I'll stop there. But we're using internal tools really efficiently now anyway. So that works well. We're using it for. Of course, we're developing our big open source model, the Llama model. We are having a Meta AI that we're incorporating into our platforms, into our Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, etc. So in many ways, so just for ourselves, it's been super important to go all in on this, and it's been the transformation from the old school AI to the newer developments. Yeah.
And we're sitting here with the big fintechs, right? Sorry, not big tech in general, right? And you keep saying overspend, overspend, overspend. Are you leaving everybody else behind if they're not spending now? Or is there any catch up? Or is it really necessary to overspend to make sure that you are ahead of the game for the coming years?
I can start with that one. I think we are looking into a couple of 10 years where we see a more diverse. I still think there will be big tech, and I think big tech will be even bigger. We're only seeing sort of the beginning in this journey, but I don't think Microsoft will open a bank. I don't think Nvidia will open a pharmaceutical company. I don't think Meta will open a shipping company. I think will be very big players in these industries. We see it in the pharma industry. The guys that use AI are way more innovative, come up with way more drugs, spend less money on drug development. They will become really, really, really big pharma. So I think we will see big tech, big finance, big pharma, and these kind of things. So I think there will be more extreme company with a valuation over $1 trillion. And then there will be less of these mid-sized companies.
And I mean, looking at the AI models themselves, I think it's, I mean, of course, DeepSeek came around and proved that you could actually develop something without spending that much money if you could base it on some other things. So that was interesting. Some of the optimizations, I'm not on the technical side of this, but as I understand it, some of the optimizations they did were phenomenal. But I think right now it seems like it's pointing to a future where many of the big models will be developed as they are right now by US and China. And the role of Europe will be more, it's more difficult to see that. It's not necessarily a problem, I would say, we can discuss that, but I don't think necessarily that's a problem because, I mean, for instance, I mean, as long as you in Europe can innovate on them, build on them, develop new global businesses on them, it's not necessarily a big problem that someone else developed the actual model. Especially, I mean, I'm biased towards an open source model because that's what we are developing. So, I mean, if you use that one, you can just pull it down, download it, and then you can use it, and then you don't have to transfer data or money or anyone or anything to the. So I'm doing a bit of advertising for our model here, but just to say anyway. So I think, but that is, I think the picture we're going to see that US and China will still be very dominating in this area.
Just to add that there's a few different things driving these massive investments, in particular in infrastructure, which is basically data centers, right? One thing is AI, they need to train AI, they need to run AI, but it's also old-fashioned digitalization, right? We are investing around, I think it's 20 billion euro in Europe over 16 months. That is partly AI investments, but it's also to meet the demand for digitalization, digital services, all different kinds of cloud services from our customers in Europe. And then, by the way, also a different trend, which is many European organizations like to have their data in Europe. They're not too comfortable with the current geopolitics, perhaps, to move data around the world that they might used to do. They're more comfortable now having the data on European soil. We're even building a data center in Denmark, which is also an example of that. So there's a few different things driving those massive investments, I think.
That makes sense. But Caroline, from your perspective, would you say that AI is lowering the barriers for startups in general, non-traditional players coming into the market? We could speak about, banking, telcos, and how should the businesses respond in general?
Yeah, absolutely lowering the bar. I'm not sure how many of you have heard of the startup called Lovable.dev. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. It's just one of the startups, and they run like 7 or 11 people. I don't remember. Sorry, I just flew in. Woke up 5 o'clock today. Flew in from Helsinki. I'm a bit blurred with accuracy of the data. Sorry, my apology. But it's just a handful of people. In 2 years, they got. They are one of the top 10 startups in Silicon Valley, and it's the user interface that you can pretty much prompt on the website, prompt how the design, how the website will look like, and also the front-end code is generated from there. And imagine the disruptions bring in from this level of startups, comparing traditional company like ours, CD Solution, we're building the SaaS from the scratch, coding the solutions. So definitely startup making the ways of competition landscape change a lot. But I also see opportunities for medium-sized and large companies, including our clients. One, there's more competition happens. If you see our traditional clients, they have lots of good data in-house. Then perhaps it's not about how fast you build a solution, perhaps it's about how well you're using the data, enrich that insights, and also building a startup mindset. Experiment on the domain that you used to want to enter in, but it was too complicated to enter in. You can experiment on that. So that might be the opportunity for medium and large-sized company in comparison with these really hungry, fast startups.
And I also think it's maybe an old-fashioned way of measuring company size. How many people are you? Because we see a tendency of companies becoming very, very high valued, but very few people. NVIDIA is a great example. You're only 30,000 at NVIDIA. There is a cool Danish startup they called Manifold AI. They do quite a lot with Matas and with Royal Unibrew. They're only 7 months old. And they do chatbots, but they present them as a new colleague. So they are presented like a Friday meeting. Hey, meet your new colleague. This is Mona. She is now a CEO manager. You can interact with her in chats, in Slack, Teams, whatever you want. She works like a normal colleague. She have a persona. She have a profile picture. Mona is a marketing manager. She's super creative. She uses a lot of smileys and stuff like that. So she have a persona around it. And they counted like a new employee, a birthday and everything.
Can I follow on that?
Yeah,
It
sure,
comes
sure.
a little bit back to your first question on,
Yeah.
on the hype cycle, right? I think I kind of see it as kind of we are going through maybe 3 stages, at least so far. We've started with the experimentation with Gen AI on the inside of the organizations. Could be on the intranet, internal chatbots, ask your HR partner, ABC. Then we've seen maybe over the last half a year, perhaps, companies starting to build customer-facing solutions. We've seen that in insurance industry, partly in the banking industry. A company like Top Denmark has done pretty remarkable things in this area with very, very high success, more accuracy, more customer satisfaction. And now the third phase that we might see is kind of what Rasmus mentions, where we get companies that are built from the scratch up on this technology. And that will be an extremely exciting phase to watch unfold, I think.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting anecdote from one of the engineers we have, and we don't have that many engineers in Denmark, but we have a few, and one of them, he besides working at Meta, he also has his own startup next to it, where him and a guy they're building stuff. But I thought what he just told me was interesting. Maybe it's a no-brainer for you, but it was that he was that other guy sitting there, and he's using the AI to code. I mean, it's just it's almost like he has employees in terms of that other guy's running a number of different AI coders that then are sort of developing. And that guy then just have to, instead of having 3 junior people doing it, he's using the AI to do it, and then that guy is sort of checking it alongside our engineer. So it's just, I don't know, to me it's just sort of probably something we're going to see a lot, right? And that, to what you're saying, it's going to make it much easier. If you have the skills, you need some skills in there. But if you have some skills, you can actually use these tools already to, yeah.
I want to follow up on the comment on that. The company I come from, CD Solution, is actually the first one in Finland announced that to full-on committed into the AI-powered software development. To be honest, I think that's the battle we cannot avoid. We really see the large language model directly change into how software development cycle changes. So we have been really looking into how using AI agent could enable the speed of the, more than just a coding actually, it's the entire life cycle of developing a software as a service. From the beginning of designing, gathering insights, to then you initial coding with we're commonly using cursor, create that feature and deploy and testing, doing the automated testing, and then deploying to the user and collecting feedback, the whole cycle. And when I was talking with our principal architect, we realized that the devil lies in the detail. The classic terms hasn't changed. If you are just using the Copilot coding agent or cursor blindly, it's gonna give you a lot of extra waste code. You need to delete them. So the time you're actually curating that code, it's more than you craft that from scratch. So what he have learned during the process is that rather than the traditional way of creating a software, it's more of you are toning the coding agent, really understanding your software design philosophy so that it will behave similar as you wished from the architectural point of view. So over the time, over the months, of course, the agent also adapts into the way that what is the best coding, what is the best code, what's a high quality code should produce for this project that fits into the business requirement. So what I want to highlight here is the understanding, the calibration happens through the interactions. One short prompt will never work. The magic of how agent could just suddenly produce code, replace human, it doesn't happen like that. It's more of how we build a new form of relationship with this capability that bring by the AI.
That's really interesting. It takes us a little bit into the next theme, and that's around, can we trust AI to get it right? And one of the questions I have is actually around, you spoke about Mona, Rasmus. Why do we need to humanize AI? What does it say about our expectations, fears, and trust in the technology? Why is it?
I think it's human nature, want to humanize anything, right?
maybe.
AI is not the first thing we want to humanize. We also see our beloved pets wearing human clothes, right?
But this is technology, right?
Yeah, it is. But I think we want to humanize the technology. It's part of our natural instinct to want to feel that sense of connection, feel sense of, the trust. But in terms of actual AI technology, I think the real trust should build on its responsibleness towards doing good for the society, doing good for the human, and then also towards the actual functionality, usefulness of it. So even we want to humanize AI, but that might not be the right path to go deep.
I think in some of the examples, it actually makes quite a lot of sense. Most technology, including AI, is not functioning in a vacuum. It's functioning in the real world like the rest of us. It needs to interact with a human, a programmer, a customer, or whoever it can be. And that world is designed, and on normal expectation is to deal with other people. The bottle is designed for my hand, so if we'll do an AI robot, give it a hand so I can take the bottle. I don't know why it should take the bottle, but it could take the bottle. So the same with software and AI agents. If they behave like a human, then we know how to interact with them. If they behave like AI and software and just put out zeros and one, we had no idea how to interact with them. So we need to humanize them. A lot of the guys using AI tools don't have a PhD in math or in computer science. They have a domain-specific knowledge, and they want to bring that domain-specific knowledge in play together with AI. Just like the coding example, it could be a well driller, a nurse, a doctor. It could be everybody that wants to interact with these kind of things. And doing that in an actual function is an easy way to interact with technology. I think because AI needs to work in the real world, we need to humanize it, both as robot, but also as agents and chatbots and these kind of things.
I would just add that, that is also the shift we have seen with generative AI. That version of deep learning is that it's the first time that normal people like myself, that's not an engineer or a PhD in anything, can interact with the technology in the language I use in a day-to-day world. We've never been able to do that before. You need the programmers, the interfaces, or whatever to make that happen. Today you can build your own agent, and you're probably an engineer, so you're a bad example. Martin is not, so Martin can build his own agent using the language he uses and the business purpose he has. And that way it's you've made this technology available to the masses and to every part of the department in your organization, not just the IT department or maybe the finance department, but really any domain expertise that wants to use this technology. So that is the shift, and that's then of course also when we have to start talking about the ethical guidelines that we put on top, right? The need to clearly mark when you're interacting with not a human but an bot, etc. Fortunately, we have some regulation coming out at EU level that will help us guide that, but I think it's a good principle as a company and organization to start implementing those basically common sense things. Of course, you make sure that your customers or even your employees know what it is they're interacting with.
I think just building on that one, I think one thought I would say on the, it's actually, maybe it's controversial to say, but I feel it's gone better than we could have feared and expected so far, in the sense that also what you talked about, Michael, before that, a couple of years ago we were afraid that the AI comes and takes over and ruins the world. That can still happen next week, so with that, but I think, for instance, last year we were all afraid that, last year was a huge election year. We were all afraid that those elections, like we had the US, we had India, we had, I think like billions of people out there voting last year. Europe also. We were afraid that it would be corrupted, these elections, by AI. And actually it didn't blow up.
Romania.
Sorry? Yeah, Romania. But overall, it went, I think, better than we feared, at least. And that goes for a lot of things, I think, so far. But that doesn't mean that we still need to have frameworks around it. We need to be super vigilant around it, and we need to build in bias checks and lots of things. I think so. I think the starting point this time as a positive thing on the starting point is that I think governments around the world are very focused on it, and so are the big tech actually also. I mean, all the big techs have been are working together and working for themselves in terms of controlling the bias, controlling the dangers, really, I would say. But of course, there need to be someone needs to all the time look at us and criticize us and keep a check on the industry. That's for sure. But yeah. So anyway, I think I'm fairly optimistic at this point, at least.
But can we trust AI at some point to stand totally alone, or will there always be, a touch of a human to make sure that we are in control?
You do that today? What car do you have?
Huh?
What car do you have?
I have a Mercedes.
You trust AI today? You trust NVIDIA technology to stop, to insist you to have lane assist? Trust AI today? You don't ask somebody at Mercedes to do lane assist for you. You trust AI to do that for you.
Mm-hmm.
But going to an AI doctor, for instance, I would be pretty nervous around.
There is always you need to figure out what is this application. I am
Yeah.
trusting my iPhone it, you are in the Mercedes. In a lot of cases, I actually see AI could outperform most doctors, at least lower the low quality of it. So I think
True.
we see it in radiology. AI is outperforming quite a lot of radiologists. It's a long common education. It's close to being a doctor. We see it in US. We have AI nurses now coming in, ensuring that a lot of patients get care they otherwise wouldn't have. So I think we are going in the right direction where you can trust it. Yes, it's always ask about risk, and if there's high risk, you need to be sure that the things you come up with is correct. But I think we are close. Getting there.
Mm-hmm.
Is someone,
Go ahead.
I'm just saying. I mean, I hate to be that guy in the panel that talks about regulation. I mean, but let me
We need
let
that
me
guy.
do it nonetheless.
We need that guy.
I'm a political scientist of background. I think for this reason, the fact that the technology is becoming better and probably will be used more and more automatically without a human in the loop, I think it's sensible that we do have some rules coming in place, at least in this part of the world, where you don't just kind of smack it on every single use case you can think of in the world, every form of AI, but no, you kind of put it on where it might make the biggest damage to an individual or to society, right, or to the rights or fundamental rights of someone by taking this risk-based approach. Now, I'm not saying everything is perfect with what's called the AI Act, which is the new EU rules. Far from it. I think, in particular, there's some, unclear definitions. There are some overlap. Which is poison if you have to explain to your engineers whether they turn left or right when they design their project. So hopefully that will be kind of like handled in the work that is ongoing in Brussels. But I think it's very sensible that we do have sort of a framework that zooms in on where we might see the biggest harm. So maybe that's not the areas doctors, use in education, use in allocation of welfare services, whatever. That's maybe not where we want to put the human outside the loop.
Yeah.
One small comment to that one. One of the things it takes is a risk-based approach. We like that, we support that, but it doesn't take into consideration not using AI. So example, we had Corti in Denmark. We don't longer have Corti in Denmark. So if you call 911, you have a heart attack. It's actually detecting that a few years ago in Denmark. It doesn't do that anymore thanks to AI Act. So more people will die a heart attack in Denmark due to AI Act. That's the risk about not doing AI. They're now using it in the US. So I think we should have in that regulation as well thinking about the risk of not using AI.
Oh, absolutely. And your example of radiology is a great example. There's a long waiting list to get X-rays, etc.
Yeah.
And that's exactly my point. Let's make sure then that the AI Act does not mean that Corti has to go to US or do their work elsewhere, but they can do it with the hospitals and emergency services in Europe.
Yeah. I also want to highlight the question was about the trust. And I don't believe the trust comes from purely based on capabilities. Yes, AI surpassed human in many ways in terms of capability. Even from the last year AI index published by Stanford, that I think apart from the general reasoning, many other aspects AI has already surpassed us. But trust is something that a sensation of observed and obtained from human. And I think the trust it's built in the intimacy that how you interact with these tools and how is it give you expected response. And if you over-trust it at first, and then suddenly you get a wrong answer, your trust may be diminished by that. So I would say that, especially given the trend from the AI agent coming, a lot of workflow will be automated, human no longer necessary or should be all the time in the loop. The trust really should build on dedication, on clear calibration, which type of decision you can give AI to do it, and you have ability to reverse that decision. You also have, if you need, you can see the explainability behind that, why that decision is made. And I think these are the key pillars to inject trust, maintain the trust along the side when you're using the AI applications.
We also start to see more and more application where there's not human in the loop, but there is AI in the loop. We have in Denmark, if you get prescription medicine, there is AI in the loop, controlling his use milligram instead of gram and these kind of things. So you actually don't die of what the doctor will give you. So having AI in the loop is a new way of actually working with these kind of things and increase trust.
Interesting.
Good. Next
You
theme.
can keep going if you want.
Yeah, but I know that, and we are not going to get through half of the questions at all. So we'll move into the next theme, and it's about the value versus risk. So one of the questions is about you spoke a little bit about it, Rasmus. The number of employees in companies, large companies, small companies, etc. But how will, from your perspective, how will AI actually reshape the job market in general over the next 5 to 10 years? I know it's quite a big question, right? Is it going to create more jobs, or it's actually going to make people redundant in general? And can you think of any, there will be a lot of new roles, I'm 100% certain around that, or new industries that might emerge from AI? So it's a very big question, but you catch my drift around this, right?
I can start on that one. I had a good friend call me up last night and say, Michael, you gotta start talking about AI in a different way. To just talk about AI in terms of efficiency and hours reduced, and we can talk a lot about that. See, in the finance, in the use, in coding, etc. There's a lot of reductions. But he said, start talking about it in terms of job satisfaction, in terms of unleashing time for creative tasks, just generally improving how you feel when you go to work. And I like that shift in the way we talk about AI. And it is also what we've seen in and keep in mind we only in year 2 of this version of the AI revolution. So we're really not very far into it yet. But that is what we've seen. Talked about finance. I have a witty CFO out in Microsoft. I don't know, there's not that many of those around. Looking out I heard that most of you are CFOs. I'd expected more from that, but okay. He's quoted, he said once at a stage here, he said, doing forecasting, doing yearly budgeting is a little bit like going to war. You kind of kissed your family farewell and you went and slept in the office for 6 weeks. It used to take 6 weeks and about 100 people to forecast our year, sort of around, when we start our fiscal year. We've now, with generative AI, we've reduced that to under a week and about 20 people. And job satisfaction in that department, which 10 years ago used to be the lowest job satisfaction in the entire Microsoft organization, has skyrocketed. So the case here is not only that it makes it a little bit more efficient, it becomes more fun work, it becomes a better place to be. It's perhaps more creative tasks or more human-oriented tasks. Go meet with customers instead of crunch the numbers. So I will take that to heart, what my friend told me yesterday, to talk a little bit about job satisfaction and that part of what the technology brings.
I think again, it's something that's been debated a lot the last couple of years, of course, but I don't think it's going to reduce the number of jobs overall, even though there's been a lot of people saying that. I think it's going to, of course, create a lot of different jobs. Just like when the internet came about and when the social media came about, by the way. I mean, it's been changing. You get new functions, new things that are possible to do, and then people will do that. And some of the things that took a long time before takes a little bit less now. And I think the 91 people before that said they are using AI in their companies. I think they are probably not using it for everything. They're probably using it as a nice tool, a good, helpful tool that makes them makes maybe their work a little bit easier and more comfortable, or makes them a little bit more efficient. But it probably hasn't had, I would guess, a huge impact on the number of people so far. I think so. I think it's going to be. It's just going to change into. It's a useful tool, and I don't think that huge revolution is gonna be something. I think it will come gradually. We'll be using the tools more and more. We'll have extra tools, and that will make our work a little bit more. It will be increase our productivity really. But I don't see those scenarios where we'll all just have AIs to do everything, and we'll sit watching TV or whatever we do. I don't see that. Yeah. So I think the 91 people will probably recognize that it's a tool in their daily life, but it's not more than that at this point.
Yeah, we have already seen the new type of jobs coming in. For instance, we've seen the job list from AI native developers, AI native designers, product managers who are managing the AI solutions. So there are already new jobs in the market. If you check LinkedIn, you will find them.
But what about all the doctors? Where should they go? AI doctors replacing, what should they do?
Well, that's a different question about how AI will augment our ability. If I may continue from the earlier predictions, what is job, right? It's form of trade from individual. We give services or intelligence to return something. Well, I do believe that higher capability of AI will reduce a lot of jobs we know today. But we all need a new type of services. If each individual of us will be going through a career invention or a switch, we would need additional education to make that happen. That's bringing the opportunities of new jobs. And what does it mean if there is less mundane tasks we need to do? We will have more time to do critical thinking or decision making. What kind of new knowledge we need to know, and what kind of new services we need to give to the people for them to spend time more meaningfully. So I think those are where the new jobs will form. Not directly created by AI, but as one of the social impact bring in.
I'm actually in doubt. Normally when we see these large changes, steam machine, electricity, and these kind of things, there is a tendency of coming up with new jobs at more or less the same speed. I'm not sure we can come up with enough new jobs to actually take all the jobs that AI can take out of this equation. One of the most interesting things I have heard the last year is Anthropic CEO did an essay, and AI turned it into a podcast, and I listened to that one. And he predicted that in the next 5 to 10 years, with the progress we have in AI in medicine, we can prolong the average lifetime to more or less 2x of what we have today on a global scale. So that means 150 years old. That's quite a lot of more time to do stuff. Quite a lot of more you need to save for a pension, both from you and from Mette Frederiksen. But it's also, that's only pharma industry. If you take all the other industry and apply the same logic that AI can speed up 100 years innovation in 5 to 10 years, that no matter what you do, you can take a Nobel Prize winner helping you with that project, no matter if you're making dinner for your kids or you're doing a project at work. If you can just take agents down, there is Nobel Prize winner in whatever you want to do. Does it make sense for humans to have a job in the future? And that's the big question. And one of the things he also tried to answer in that essay is, if you always can find an AI that is better at the given task than you are, what do you spend your life on? Go fishing, painting, listening to music. He tried to come up with some really clear answer on that. So a strong recommendation from you to listen to that podcast. And it really changed my mindset around AI and say, okay, the speed of AI, this compressed 21st century is changing everything. So I don't think we can create that many jobs being prompt engineers and all the other things around it, because AI will also be a better prompt engineer than you will be in a year. So I'm actually in doubt.
10, 12 years ago, I used to work for Google, and we had back then there was a lot of talk about disruption, that we would, tech would disrupt everything, and we had all kinds of great inventions, which we are getting, but at least the speed that we talked about back then has been a bit more modest, I would say, than what was talked about. So I feel maybe I'm just naive, but I feel a bit more. I don't think it's going to be that dramatic as what has been.
That's part of the job description at the media. You need to be optimistic.
That's totally right.
Can I just add to Rasmus' point there on, so the hypothetical question, what would you, if you could get 20 hours more every week by using AI smartly, what would you use those 20 hours for? It's an interesting question to kind of ask yourself internally in the organization. There's been a few studies done. We did one last year as well on Denmark. That also showed an interesting kind of generational difference there, where the elder people, the older people, the more senior people at the workplace preferred to do something else at the workplace, to take on new tasks, get more done, get more off their hands. The younger generations preferred to take time off, realize themselves in other ways. So I think there's also some interesting, basically HR leadership discussions coming out of these kind of questions.
Different dynamics going forward between the generations. Yeah. Sorry?
We see it in Klarna. They actually try to take that what we use these 20 hours for. So they stopped hiring people and say, okay, we are growing like 20% every year, but we just stop hiring people. So we have the same people. We are increasing our salary every year, like we would if we had hired more people, but we just use AI instead of hiring new people. So we start to see company that is doing it in a smart way, actually saying, you still work 40 hours a week, and then, yeah, there's more jobs, but then use AI.
Did you read the news 2 days ago published about Klarna? They started hiring human agent again. I did have my own reservation also on Klarna, make the big marketing entry that we are using AI-powered customer service center, that we no longer have the human agent in it. And I think now Klarna are also telling us that after trying out, not all the tasks can be simply handled, at least based on today's technology by the AI agent. There need to have that balance between the human and AI agent
So they
to work
actually start
together.
hiring again.
Yep, 2 new ones.
Human beings, Rasmus.
Give it a year.
Yeah. But quite often I also reflect, as we are all in the IT industry, our point of view are not necessarily represent the mass majority who are, just using IT as one form of service where their main business focus is somewhere else, such as in the banking or in the other traditional industries. So we're likely to be a bit more optimistic towards that. So I believe that transition journey will take longer than we initially anticipated.
That's interesting.
Yeah. For example, today, I mentioned earlier from the last year how we switch our topic from training our clients, understanding how to use large language tools in their daily works, to understand where we could start helping them optimizing the workflow. This year, a lot of conversation has been happening around companies' AI transformation, the whole systematic change into today's company, what kind of organizational change they need in order to welcome the transformation. And surprisingly, we find the most open-minded one were the printing companies, or like the classic media publishing companies. And the reflection on that is because they have gone through the digitalization, they have gone through that adoption phase. Therefore, when AI disruptive comes, they're ready for the change. So yeah, that was
Really
interesting.
interesting. Time is almost running out. We've been sitting here for almost 40 minutes now, and it has been, great. So we're finalizing now. So I have one question to wrap everything up, turning everything we have discussed into some sort of action. So I have one question for each of you, and it's, straightforward. The one key point that you believe that everybody in this room should take home with them today to make sure that we actually, move forward around AI. Will you?
I thought Rasmus went. Okay, I'll start.
You need to start
Damn
this
it.
time.
Okay. I would just going back to your slide or the survey you did there at the start with the big tower in the middle there.
Yes.
Organization that hasn't really gotten sort of started. I would just say, as kind of simple point. don't start with the most complicated or the most dangerous use case. Find a good use case that you have control of, that is not the most risky one, that maybe if you haven't gotten a lot of experience yet using the technology, that is more internally focused. Start with that, get moving, learn how to use the technology, and then expand from there. I think that's a sensible approach.
Can I go next? Because I would say the complete opposite. Go back, think about what makes your company unique. Immediately we do chips. That's the thing, we are really, really good at doing chips. So we spend all our resources on doing AI and chips. We don't care about HR robots, we don't care about co-pilots, we just buy that from Microsoft and SAP and all the other guys. You can do that, figure out what's the most important thing for your company and do AI on that. Buy the rest. And then to the 11 guys that cannot use AI, go back home and yell at your boss.
I will go next. I think it's not about how AI will replace humans' job, at least today. Future holds so many different possibilities. Perhaps what will replace us is your competitors who are already adopting AI into their business value chain. So start today, working with AI, seeing as your new partner rather than just a tool, to harvest the common understanding how to bring the most potential of this AI application to augment your ability.
I think I will then make a policy point instead, where I think if we want, I think one thing we should all take away right now is that Europe, and it's pretty well documented by now, that Europe is losing out on tech and on AI to China and to US. And I think we probably have a joint interest in this room as Europeans on trying to change that. And I think that can be done actually, because if we look a bit critical at some of those stumbling, what do you call that, snubletråde, what is that in English?
Stumbling blocks.
Stumbling blocks we put in place, barriers we put in place for ourselves all the time. And I think you probably heard of many of you about the Draghi report from last year on the EU level. It's documenting how we're just putting these stumbling blocks in place for ourselves all the time. And I think the big task for Europe now, also in the situation we're in globally, I think we should take a very hard critical look at those stumbling blocks, and especially in the tech area actually. And that is where our productivity is lower than others, is because we are bad at taking in new tech in Europe because of our own self-made barriers. We need to take a look at that. So I'll stop there. But I can talk forever about that topic.
Well, that's a good way to end it, actually. So thank you, Rasmus, Caroline, Martin, Michael. It has been a really, really great discussion. And I hope that I will see you here next year also, because I want to continue this discussion and want to build on what we have discussed. So let's see if we can try that
free
next
of
year.
Gen AI.
Thank you. Give a big round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.